may not always notice it. But there are moments in life when you are moving through your days, doing what you are supposed to do, saying what you are expected to say, following a path that looks normal from the outside, and yet, inside you, something remains still, silent, as if there is a part of you that is not fully participating in your own life, a part that is observing, questioning, but never speaking loud enough to be heard. And that part of you always asks, even if you try to ignore it, is this real, or is this just what I have been taught to accept as real? And before we enter this journey, if you are someone who enjoys stories that go deep into the human condition, stories that do not give easy answers, but force you to face difficult questions, then take a moment right now and subscribe to this channel, because what you are about to hear is not just a story, it is The World of the Stranger by Albert Camus. A story that does not try to comfort you, but to show you something raw, something unfiltered, something real. This is the story of Meursault, a man who did not try to be anything other than what he was, a man who did not follow the invisible rules that most people obey without question, a man who lived in a way that made others uncomfortable, not because he was dangerous, but because he was honest in a world that expects performance. The story begins with a message. His mother has died. For most people, this moment is filled with expected emotions, sadness, grief, tears. But for Meursault, the moment is different. He does not cry. He does not force himself to feel what he does not feel. He simply experiences the situation as it is. He travels to the funeral. He observes the people, the heat, the silence, the small details that most people ignore. And in doing so, he breaks an invisible rule, the rule that says you must feel what society expects you to feel. And without realizing it, he is already being judged, not by law, but by expectation. He returns to his life and continues as he always has. He goes back to work. He walks under the sun. He notices the simple things, the texture of life that most people pass through without thinking. He meets Marie, a woman who is drawn to him, not because he is extraordinary, but because he is different. She laughs, she swims, she speaks of love, of future, of connection. And she asks him a question that most people would answer without thinking. Do you love me? And his answer is simple. It does not mean anything, but I do not think so. This is not cruelty. This is honesty. But in a world built on expected answers, honesty can sound like indifference, and indifference can feel like rejection. But Meursault does not adapt his words to comfort others. He speaks only what he feels, and that is what makes him different. As time passes, life continues with small moments, small decisions, small interactions that slowly build towards something larger, until one day, under the weight of heat, pressure, and a moment that feels both random and inevitable, everything changes. The sun is strong, almost oppressive, pressing down on him, distorting his sense of reality. And in that moment, a single action happens, an action that cannot be taken back, an action that defines everything that follows. He kills a man. Not out of hatred, not out of a clear plan, but in a moment that feels disconnected from meaning, and from that moment, his life is no longer his own. He is arrested, put into a system that does not try to understand him, but to classify him, to define him, to reduce him to something that makes sense to others. The trial begins. But what is strange is that the focus is not only on the act, it is on him, his character, his emotions, his behavior at his mother's funeral, his lack of tears, his refusal to lie, his difference, and slowly, it becomes clear. He is not being judged only for what he did. He is being judged for who he is. For not crying when he was expected to cry. For not loving when he was expected to love. For not pretending when he was expected to perform. The court does not want truth, it wants conformity. It wants a story that fits into its understanding of human behavior. But Meursault does not give it that. He remains the same, calm, present, honest, and that honesty is unacceptable, because it reveals something that people do not want to face, that much of what we call normal is performance. As the trial continues, the world around him becomes more absurd, not because it is strange, but because he now sees it clearly. The way people speak, the way they judge, the way they need meaning where there may be none. And in this clarity, he becomes more alone than ever, not physically, but existentially, until he reaches the final moments of his life. And in those moments, something shifts. not in the world, but in his understanding of it. He realizes that life does not need to have a deeper meaning to be real, that the world is not obligated to make sense, and that accepting this brings a strange kind of peace. Not a comfortable peace, but a clear one. A peace without illusion. And for the first time, he is fully present, fully aware, fully himself. Without fear, without pretense. And now, this is where the story stops being about Meursault and starts becoming about you. Because the real question is not what he did, but how much of your life is lived through expectation, how much of what you feel is really yours, and how much is something you have learned to show. Are you living your truth, or performing a version of yourself for the world? And if this story has made you think, even slightly, then do not ignore it. Subscribe to this channel, because this journey is far from over, and the next story may not just make you think. It may force you to see yourself in a way you never have before.